Hello, sweethearts. It's me, Fieros on Fieros Reborn. Hi. Um, Today, Fieros' story time. I'm gonna just start off talking a little bit about death. It's been the last 3 years. There's been an undertone theme of death going on in my life. Um, from 2015, when my granddad died, my second granddad died. Um, he had dementia, and and he died. I don't know, pretty much natural causes. I think it was just time for him to go. He was 80 something, 87 or 88, I can't remember, and he had dementia, and he was in a home, and it was just time for him to go. And so that didn't feel unnatural in any way. That felt kind of expected and normal because he was old and because he was ill with dementia, and it's just, that's what happens. That's when life turns to mush, as I like to say sometimes. What do I like to say? It's just what I say. Yeah. Life turns to mush, and that's the way it goes. And I wouldn't be particularly troubled if I went like that. I'd probably be troubled by the dementia aspect, but I wouldn't be troubled if I was just old and a bit ill and then I die. I think that would be how I would prefer to die. So, or to just go to sleep and not wake up the next day. I'd like to have a feeling that this was my time before it happened. I'd like to kind of know or sense so that I could prepare myself inside. But I might not be able to do that. Yeah. So 2015, and then we had a lot of celebrity deaths coming in. Well, there was the one, I can't remember exactly when Robin Williams was, but Robin Williams is quite an important one to me, even though I still haven't gone into the. Oh, that's 2014. Okay, well, I still haven't gone into thinking properly about Robin Williams, and I feel like I want to do more with regard to grieving on Robin Williams. There's just been so many deaths going on that I can't keep up with it. Robin Williams, and then you had Alan Rickman, David Bowie. Oh God, so many, so many. Prince. That was random. That was so strange. What is David Bowie? What? Everyone's dying of cancer as well. Um, what did he die of though? Come on now. Doesn't say straight up. Well, people just have been dying, lots. And then you had Chris Cornell was random as well. And then the guy from Linkin Park, Chester Bennington, he died. David Bowie died of liver cancer, and I've just had a friend or acquaintance, really, someone who I spent some time doing some musical work with, who's just died in the last week or so, or 2 weeks ago, of liver cancer as well. And so it's really been a theme. And also, my auntie's mum died this year as well. My parents, some of their long-term friends died. A couple both died in quick succession of each other, of cancer, I think, as well. So everyone's dying of cancer, and yeah, I mean, like loads of celebrities dying or killing themselves as well recently, and it's just been really an onslaught. It's just a mass cull. It's a slaughterhouse out there. It's a slaughter world. Everyone's dying, and it's like I can't fucking deal with it. Like there's too many of them to deal with and to remember, because as soon as you do your little bit of memorial for one, someone else has died, three other celebrities have died, and then a distant relative has died. So it's like, okay, okay, I'm maxed out on dead people right now. I'm maxed out on the death. And then someone else, as I just said, just dies. Kind of, I get told about it today, and it's happened. I don't know whether it happened 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago or something. I don't know the exact date, but this is so strange. Oh yeah, and another friend, fellow musician of mine died in 2017. So I don't know what to make of it. So many people dying, and I'm thinking, I'm a bit young to have all these people dying, and am I not? I don't know. I don't know. You know, I feel like you're supposed to be old when all the people you know start to die, and everyone I know is dying. Not everyone I know, but a lot of people who I know are dying. And it's weird, and it's strange. And Prince was very odd. I did not see that coming, and I don't know why. Why did he die? Let's look at Prince. Because he was only 50 years old. Prince. Prince, the artist. Prince Rogers Nelson. Cause of death, accidental fentanyl overdose. Right, accidental. I don't know what to believe either. So, that was so strange. I found the Michael Jackson thing a bit strange as well. These people dying so young. Oh, he died aged 57. I thought it was only 50. Well, 57's not bad. But 57's really young for someone to die. You know, average life expectancy for a male. What is the average life expectancy? Average life expectancy is 81 years. In America, it's 78 years. So 81 years in the UK. 78 years old. People, that's the normal average. That's the average. So if you die at age 57, that's really a lot less, isn't it? It's 20 years less, or more than 20 years. And this person who died didn't die yesterday, but to me it feels like it happened yesterday because I've only told about it today. But this person, I don't know his exact age either, but I think he was like under 40 years old, and it's just bizarre, so strange, and it doesn't seem to make sense why people are dying so young randomly. And so many people, in my awareness at least, are dying. You know, in my life experience, just so many people are dying. Like my friend, who was the fellow busker, randomly died. And that seemed to come out of nowhere. I'm like, what? Oh yeah, I've got cancer. I've had it for ages. What? And then, sort of 6 months later, he's in a hospice, and I'd only really ever found out that he was a little bit ill, and then because I didn't know that he had cancer to begin with, and then he had cancer, and then within 6 months he was dead. And he was only like 48 or 49 or something. So, fuck. I'm starting to think I'm going to be the only person left in the world eventually. I'm going to be the only one left. Everyone's going to die. And I'm just going to be there like, how did that happen? Did I do it? Was it something I said? Everyone's just turned to mush, and there I am going, I bet it was the videos that did it. It was the videos that killed everyone. It's weird though, so strange. Very strange. You know, and I'm not shy about death. Obviously, I talked about it on my Budos channel. I've got a big video. It's like an hour long that talks about death. I'm no stranger to it, as in like I've been confronting it for a long period of time, and trying to understand it and deal with it. Really, since my first granddad died when I was 13. Yeah, 13. Since that moment, I've been trying to comprehend and understand death and to like deal with it and grieve and stuff. And I got really into grieving, and I feel like grieving or mourning or processing loss is a big part of my life, and it has been a big part of my life over the last few years, because also with this story that I've been telling on the Fieros Storytime videos, there's a lot of sense of loss around all these things, because what all these adventures and life changes represent is losses, lots and lots of losses of friendships, losses of situations, losses of stability, losses of identity, losses of sexuality, losses of relationships. Change equals loss. So, well, change plus attachment to a stability equals loss. So if you're attached to a sense of stability around something, or a sense of identity around something, or a sense of continuity, then when that thing changes and it's no longer continuous anymore and it's no longer stable, then it means you feel lost because you expect it to continue, and I think that's natural. If you go around living as though the world's about to fall in at every moment, that's when you start having panic attacks all the time, and that's a difficult way to live. So you have to rely on the world to be continuous over time. Otherwise, you just, like, imagine if I believed that at any moment the whole world could explode. Then I'm going to be living in fear all the time because at any minute the world could explode. So you have to take reasonable expectation of continuity into account. You've got to expect that you're going to wake up tomorrow, because if you don't expect to wake up tomorrow, then why bother going to sleep? You have to expect to continue, and it's natural to do that. But then there's also the expectation. You have to have a reasonable expectation that you are going to die, as in that's inevitable, but you also have to have the reasonable expectation that everything else in the world is going to die at some point. So everything you know and love, unfortunately, is going to die or end or change or transmute into something else over time. So there's like that balance between expecting things to stay the same and expecting things to change. So you've got to have a bit of both. You've got to know that eventually everything does change or disintegrate or dissolve or move or get displaced or whatever, or die, or become obsolete, stuff like this. And you got to accept that, and yet you also have to expect for things to continue in the meantime, and for change to be at whatever rate is appropriate. Sometimes changes are really sudden, like this thing coming to me. Someone gave me a phone call to let me know that this person had died, and I'm like, what? From my perspective, that's way out of the blue. From people close to him, would have been less out of the blue, but I think for him even it would have been pretty much out of the blue. So sometimes things change really unexpectedly, and then you just got to deal with that. So your expectation for continuity is really disrupted. You're like, well, I did not see that coming, and I expected things to carry on as normal for ages. And you expect someone to have a long, happy and healthy life, because this guy was pretty happy and he always seemed pretty healthy. There's no indication that I had ever seen that he was unhealthy or ill or anything like that. And then all of a sudden, oh, he's got cancer, and then all of a sudden, oh, he's dead. It's hard not to laugh, because it's so absurdly bizarre how quickly you can just die. And like, here you are 1 minute trotting around doing stuff, and then whoop, there you go. It's like you slip up on the banana skin of life, and then all of a sudden you're dead. And it's very strange. It's hard for me to understand. And I noticed I'm trying to kind of concoct some kind of theory, like, why is it? How is this happening? Why is it happening? And it seems to be younger people who seem to be too young to die. That keeps happening. Like a lot of the celebrities I feel were, well, they're younger than the average life expectancy, which is what makes me think that it's weird when people die a lot younger, like 57 for Prince and stuff. It's just odd. Yeah. And then this person recently who, as I say, I feel like he's younger than 40, but he could have been older than that. But he was fairly young compared to the average life expectancy. Okay. So, And obviously it puts me in the thinking mode of, oh, fuck, if everyone's dying all around me all of a sudden, then I feel it's even more like, pressing to on me, like, oh God, I'm going to die at some point. And I've had this awareness that I'm going to die, and I've been thinking about this awareness of the fact that my body is going to die and what's it going to be like for a long time, and especially over the last couple of years because of all this stuff that's happened with celebrities dying, and then people in my extended acquaintances and family dying and stuff. So I've been very, very conscious of my own death and therefore my own life. And so I've been over that time thinking about things like, well, what's my legacy at this point in my life? What do I want my legacy to be? Would I be happy if I died tomorrow, for example? Like, do I feel like I've fulfilled my life mission? So having that awareness of death is what prompts me, I suppose, to focus more on what I actually want to do while I am here. But it has been a bit of a struggle from time to time, because I have had a lot of thinking around death that just feels like, oh, life is meaningless because everything is always passing away. And this is a repetitive thought pattern that I've had for many, many years, which I managed to conquer for a long while. And then some of these other people died. And I feel like the pattern of, it's a sense of meaningless, and it's a thinking pattern of how things are meaningless because of death. That it kind of comes into the mind. And when I first experienced it, I couldn't get rid of it. Like, I couldn't compute this thought process. I couldn't process the thoughts about this meaninglessness. And then I did a hell of a lot of work, both in therapy and in my own private journal exercises on like dealing with these thought patterns about the meaninglessness of life, and to kind of finish them off, because it was just a repetitive, obsessive thought pattern that was going on inside my head that I couldn't shut it up and I couldn't stop it, and I just was obsessed about the fact that we're all going to die, blah blah blah, and it was just going round and round and round. And I basically wrote out everything I could possibly think of for ages and ages and ages and ages, and I just decided I'm going to write until I cannot write anymore about this topic, and I did, and that actually finished it. It shut that thing up, and I sort of just, it dissolved, and I dealt with it. But then it came back this year, a fair amount this year, but it was at a level that I could tolerate. It wasn't pleasant, and it's not a nice experience when I do have these thoughts in my head. It's not a nice experience at all. But then it's also dealable. Like, it's not to the point where it was before, where it was really distressing in my head. But now, because I'm more detached from my thinking anyway, and I can see my thinking and hear my thinking, and process my thinking much better, and dissolve my thinking. Like, if my thinking gets too much, I can kind of release my thoughts somehow, and I just sit back from them even more. I can do that. I've figured that out as a technique, kind of, okay, my brain's going nuts, I need to do something. Or it could be even to go outside and get some fresh air, can sometimes just release my thoughts into the wild. Yeah, so I've learned that. But yeah, so that's been around. This death thing is very don't know, it's odd. That seems to be all I have to say about it right now. I've got a funeral to go to tomorrow, though. I kind of like funerals because they really get the emotions, but don't know if I like this one because it's weird. The guy's too young, If it was an old person, then I'd be happy about that. Well done, you got to the end of the level. Well done, you reached the end of the game. Congratulations, you got that far. And look at the lovely life, or the life that you've had, and congratulations. I'm very pleased that you're passing on to better places, possibly. And because you're kicking up if you hang around forever, people are going to trip up over you. So off you go. You can't have people hanging around for too long. But yeah, so but this person died really young, and it's odd, it's bizarre, and I think I'm going to be really emotional, even though I didn't really know him that well. I mean, I knew him a little bit, but I feel like there's a lot of people who did know him well, and a lot of people whose lives he touched, and and because he's so young as well compared to the average life expectancy, because he's so young, it's going to be a pretty tricky one. Yeah, and I feel like I'm gonna be a gibbering wreck for a while, either during or after, because it's quite hard to show emotion in public sometimes. But I'm definitely going to shed some tears for sure. I hopefully won't cry out and wail, "Oh!" in the middle, although that might happen. Sometimes I can't keep my mouth closed. I might just be in the middle of the funeral and just go, "Oh no!" I can't help myself from expressing my feelings sometimes. Oh, he's gone. I might just do that in the middle of like the sort of sermon bit at the beginning, the eulogies. I might just go, "Oh Lord!" Because I become overwhelmed by myself, by my feelings sometimes. Hopefully that won't happen. Now that I've done it here, hopefully that will have protected me from it actually happening tomorrow. Oh no, it's not going to happen. Okay, good. We got that out of the way here. Fine. So yeah, funerals. Oh well, it's going to be tricky, but I'll get through it. And then I think it's really set me off. I've been thinking about it all day today. I'm like, oh man, and this one's hit me worse, I think, than the other guy who died, because the other guy was a bit of an asshole. I mean, he was a good guy overall, but he also had a big negative streak to him. So that was his asshole side. He's a bit of a. You could go either way with that person, but with the person who died recently, I never heard him say a bad word about anyone. He seemed happy. He was an amazingly talented person in music and composition. Multi-talented instrumentalist. Multi-instrumentalist, multi-talented. Yeah, he was just a solid guy, really good guy. He was very into his Christianity. He was a preacher. He was a music teacher as well. He did a lot for other people off his own back without any pay. So he was very charitable and generous with his time and his energies. So yeah, it's going to be hard to see him off. So with all that said, which is 22 minutes worth of death, we'll now try and talk about the wonderfully upbeat topic of me becoming slowly more psychotic, according to the world. And I think at this point in the story, I'm going to go along with that definition of it. Because it's at this point in the story that when I look back at it, my thoughts about the meanings of different things that happened, I would not say now were in touch with reality. But a lot of the stuff beforehand, I'm willing to let that go as not being a mental health problem, but as being a expression of my own unique belief system and in eccentricities and spirituality. But then, okay, so I'm going to bring you back up to date and try and give you some context to what I'm talking about. So, brief overview. When I was 18, my relationship with a person who is codenamed Mrs. A dissolved. That relationship dissolved. She cheated on me while she was at uni, and I found out, and then we mutually broke up, basically, because it was not going to go anywhere now, because she's seeing that guy and I can't go out with someone who's cheating on me. So that broke up. I was very sad. Probably wasn't sad enough at the time to have processed it properly. Anyway, then I moved to. Then I went to a different job. I was working at Legoland. Then the season ended at Legoland, and then I needed to find a new job because I was in a band and I had a car, and those were my main outgoings, was to pay for rehearsals and to keep my car going. And my main passion was to keep my car going so that I could go to rehearsals and gigs and pick up my band members and stuff. So that was the main driving force of my life, was my car and my band, and also I was doing artwork as well. But yeah, and so I needed money. So I don't know why I have to justify the fact that I needed money, but I needed money, but it's a personal reason why I needed money. You know, it wasn't like, I don't know. It was a I defined why I needed the money for myself. It wasn't because society says you need the money. For me, I knew that I needed the money because my passion was my band, so I needed money to facilitate that. Um, and I wasn't too sure about what to do, but my bassist in my band was working at a restaurant in Staines, and I went to join that restaurant. Got a job there. Fairly quickly, I realised that Mrs. A was not going to come back to me. I'd given her until the 1st of January, like New Year's Day of 2005, to come back to me and tell me she loves me and that she wants to be with me again, which didn't happen, much to my chagrin. I didn't. I was like, okay, this is in my mind, you've got until New Year's, and then I'm gonna change. I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna let it go, and I'm gonna think to the future instead of to the past. So New Year's Day came along, 2005. There were no signs that she was coming back to me, and so I decided to have a haircut. I cut off my long hair, which was long, shoulder length kind of hair, dyed browny, blacky, purpley, grotty colour, and I cut it all off, and I got a similar style to this. It was more of a peaked spike kind of in central thing like this, and then I had this little sort of landing strip type beard part with, so it's just like a little sort of vagina strip on my beard there, no moustache, but just that little on there, and that was my style for a while. And when I cut my hair, the person who I'm referring to as Mr. B became interested in me, and we had an experimentational sexual occasion, which was set up by a friend of mine and another person we worked with, who we were kind of work friends with, because they both wanted me to experiment with my sexuality, because this other guy, Mr. B, fancied me since I'd cut my hair. He wanted to convert me to gayism, homosexuality. He wanted to convert me from being straight to gay, in his own words. And so he wanted to get me. He wanted to be with me because he fancied me. And I just wanted to experiment with my sexuality, having gone through a lot of homophobic conditioning, taunting, teasing, bullying. It was a culture of homophobia in my secondary school, and there was just an ingrained, by that point it had become ingrained to fear homosexuality in myself, to repress any homosexual urges as well, and also to not even feel I could go there. If there were a feeling, I wouldn't feel allowed or be able to express it. It was bad to have that feeling, and that caused some difficulties in my relationship with Mrs. A, because of this homophobia feeling, and like some memories from my childhood where I had experimented with boys who happened to be around me at that time, because I was being looked after by a childminder person, and there were other boys who were being looked after her at the same time in the same place in this house with her. So there was a lot of boys going around, and so boys were there as I was going through like the beginnings of puberty, and even younger than that, just being a young child experimenting with the physical body. And this all bubbled back to me when I was like 17 years old, and I started going, oh God, what does this mean? This is what does this mean? Does this mean I was gay when I was a child, or what? I also didn't remember that I was also experimenting with female people, girls, when I was at that age as well. But I'd somehow blanked that out of my memory, and I didn't remember the fact that I'd had experiences with girls as well. So it was an unbalanced thing. And when I was 17, it was just so much homophobia going around that even to have a thought of any kind about gay homosexuality in my own being was presented an anxiety. It presented an anxious dilemma, because these are thoughts and feelings that I was not allowed to have, and I certainly wasn't allowed to express them, because if I were to express them, I would be bullied for it. So, and there was also a sense of needing to know internally, for my own sense of identity and understanding of myself, needing to have a definition of sexuality, and somewhat needing to feel a definition of gender as well, because there's a kind of transphobia that was present in me as well when I was growing up. There's a woman inside a man's body, that type of thing, was, and also another distressing thing, that if I was to be a woman in a man's body, that would be bad. Yeah, there was a transphobia thing inside me as well growing up. So yeah, but coming out of the school, Mrs. A and I's relationship going down the pan, me not having any success with any women around me in the workplace or anywhere else, apart from a couple of little bits of attention from the women at the workplace, but who weren't really interested in me, because they either had, one of them had a boyfriend, one of them was too young. She was like 16, and that was not for me. I was only like 18 or 19, but that was too young for me. And then there was another girl, and she just, don't know, probably found me too young, because she was a lot older than me, and she just wasn't really interested. She was kind of interested, but not interested, so nothing was going on there. So for me, this became the time when I was getting really quite distressed about the fact that I didn't have a partner. I didn't have a girl or a boy, and I was starting to feel this sense of depression and loneliness as well. And to the point where I was starting to feel like I might fancy my bassist, just because he's a good guy and he's a good-looking guy, and I'm not. I think I somehow confused our friendship with a sexual attraction. I was all over the place, basically. I was all over the place with regard to sex, sexuality, relationships, gender. Not so much at that point. Gender was, I'd accepted that I was male, and that felt right, and it feels right still. Yeah, okay, and then so I was like, okay, I want to experiment now. I want to figure this sexuality thing out, and I feel comfortable to do so, ish, because there were 3 gay men, or males, say males, because I don't think Mr. B would have counted as a man, really, because he was 17, and I would count him as a man if he was over 18. So there were 3 gay males, homosexual males, in the place that I worked when I first started working there, and they were all accepted. There was a little bit of teasing, but not so much. They had their own identity as the gays, and they're all fairly confident in their sexuality. I've never come across anyone who was gay and who was confident and comfortable and expressive in that. And in fact, in that particular workplace, there was many gays. One of the managers was gay. Who was a majorly gay not oriented, but there was a lot of gay men who worked there, either at the same time or while I was working there at some point. So it felt open, much more open than the school environment, to experiment. And I did. I felt I needed to go through this figuring out kind of thing, um, to make sense of these memories that I had from childhood and to see what they mean. Did they mean anything? It turns out I don't think they really did mean anything. I think that it was just experimentation, natural kind of game playing, and it just so happened that because there were boys around me, that was the nature of that's who I experimented with, because there were boys around me. So I'm sure if there were girls around me, then it would have happened that I would have done more with girls. But there were very few girls around, and I did experiment with those girls either as well. So yeah, I don't know. And why should you use childhood to define what you are now? It just, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. But at the time when I was 17 and these memories started bubbling back to me, they represented a threat, because if they meant anything, if they were to be used as information for the now, then all my homophobia came into play. And I was with a girl as well, in a relationship with a girl, and all these memories from my childhood having experimented with boys. It's like, what the hell? What does this mean? And I couldn't deal with it, and I couldn't handle the mental confusion of it all, basically. Yeah. So let's try and move the story forward, because we're going to get stuck in this area if we're not careful. All right, so I experimented, and my friend and this other person, this other girl, set me up with Mr. B, and I found also that Mr. B was already pursuing me quite hard, and I was just kind of going along with it. Yeah, I guess I liked the attention. He was helping me to finish off my shifts quicker than I would be able to without his help, so he would help clean my tables and stuff for me, because I was a waiter, by the way. He would do bits and bobs to make my life easier. He would prefer me. He would like give me better sections in the restaurant when he could, and he would. I think he even planned his rota around mine. I don't like that. And looking back on it, I don't like any of his behaviour actually at all. I think it was just, it's creepy. It's really creepy how much he tried to get close to me, and how much he like manipulated situations in order to get close to me. I'm like, you know, I don't know. Oh God, I don't know, because and it wasn't mutually decided, if that makes sense. So it's just a bit odd if that happened now. Someone's like rotated themselves on to always be working when you're working, and does all this stuff just to try and get close to you. I'll be like, okay, you fucking weirdo. Like, help me from this obsessive weird person who's just doing everything about me. So that would be a bit much. But at the time, I didn't even really notice it. I only really noticed it afterwards that it had happened that way, because it just kind of crept up on me like a creepy thing that creeps upon you. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, so they set up this occasion, and I went, yeah, fine, let's go and have a party. And it was the intention that this was going to be the time when I was going to experiment. My first time with a male person since childhood. It was a mature sexual relationship experiment, as in first contact with a boner, first contact with a eligible male being who also was gay, outwardly gay. So it was my first real gay experience, where there was an intention there, and there was a conscious kind of intention, yeah, to do this. It wasn't just something that you did as a kid that you didn't even know what you were doing, because it was just part of the flow of the playing of life, you know. There was like, no, I want to do this because I want to figure it out for myself. So there was an intentionality to it, and then I did it, and I don't regret it anymore because I've done a bit of processing on it now. But I did say for a while, I wish that I just like phoned off sick for a week after that point, because that would have been so helpful to me. Because if I'd done that, and I'd taken a bit of time to make sense of that experience rather than just rushing on ahead of it, I could have saved myself a lot of anguish. Because what happened was I had this sexual experiment with Mr. B, and then because there was a lot of alcohol involved and a lot of weed smoking around that time as well, I just really wasn't thinking very clearly at all about the decisions I was making. And I ended up just falling into the relationship with him without the conscious intention on that at that point. So the conscious intention was to kind of experiment with the sexuality and figure it out for myself, and then unconsciously I just got dragged. I felt I'm such a victim. In a way, that's how it felt. So I'm going to tell it from that perspective. I felt dragged into this relationship and guilted into a relationship somehow, and trapped into a relationship because of this person who is very needy for me and obsessive for me and manipulative for me, and a codependence thing came about between us where I felt like I could not leave him because of how much he liked me and wanted to be with me and loved me and obsessed about me and was possessive over me, and I felt like I couldn't leave him because of how much it would hurt him, and I couldn't deal with how much it would hurt him. So I couldn't deal. That's when you split up from codependency, when you realise that it's something that's occurring within you, that the dynamic and the decision occurs within you as to what you're going to do. So I was not able to see the fact that this guilt feeling was occurring in here, and it was my job to do something about that, rather than just being compelled by my feelings all the time. So later I learned the ability to break free from addictive, codependent style relationships like that, and to stay in my center instead and say, well, I don't want to do this right now. This isn't feeling right to me. I don't like the feeling of this. I don't like where this is going. And to cut things off or communicate that skillfully. Yeah, I didn't have that skill at that time. I was young, man. Give me a break. I'm talking to myself now, aren't I? I was young, man. Give me a break. This is reflection back. I was young. Give yourself a break, man. Okay, but yeah, so I wish that I'd gone off sick for a while and just sat with that feeling and done a lot of journaling, maybe written a few songs about it, because I just slipped into this thing that I ended up really regretting and ended up beginning a very traumatic period of time in my life. Yeah, still goes down as worst relationship ever. Worst relationship ever. Mr. B, worst relationship ever. Okay. So went through the relationship with him. He was abusive, manipulative, controlling, possessive, overly persuasive, argumentative, sexually needy, whiny, attention-seeking, insecure, fake, bossy. Trying to think of good qualities now. Helpful. Occasionally I felt that it was helpful, but I feel like a lot of his helpfulness was just another aspect of his possessive, manipulative, control, codependent thing. Yeah, it was just a real enmeshment relationship. It just became this ball of yuck. Yeah, always suggesting problems. It was always a problem, and I shouldn't be doing everything that I was doing, and I shouldn't be essentially who I was. Anyway, let's fuck that one off for the moment. So I broke up with him. I broke up with him. Oh yeah, I was at uni at the time as well, which was also mad. I was doing many different things at uni. I was running. I was being a compere for an open mic night. I had a radio show called High on Air, where I just chatted shit for an hour with my friends, with whoever was co-hosting with me, and played music from my own personal selections and from the 2 different lists. I think there was 3 different lists: A, B, and C, different lists that you had to play, which everyone had to play something from those lists. And then and I was also doing a course as well in art and philosophy and politics. So there was 3 different parts. The major part was the art, and then the 2 minor bits that I was doing in the first year were politics and philosophy. And philosophy was a head fuck as well. Like, that was a real head fuck. Philosophy would go inside my brain, and then it would just go, and the like jaws of pain would start to close in on the small atom of my brain, and it was like the teeth of the devil of the philosophy was going, and I was going, there's too much to think about. These are irresolvable philosophical problems, and if I can't solve them, then I will die. And if I can't solve them, then I should kill myself. I should throw myself off the top of the building if I can't resolve these. And no one's been able to resolve them. They're irresolvable. Oh God, what does it mean? Yeah, so my mind was not a happy place. Oh God. And I had a lot of anxiety at that time of my life, like very strong feelings of anxiety, much worse than I'd ever had before. A lot of it was to do with my relationship with Mr. B as well. During the uni, the relationship with Mr. B in the background really set me on edge about every action that I was doing with regard to talking to other women or even talking to other men. Just everything seemed to have a feeling of fear about it, that I was going to be in trouble. I was going to be in trouble. I shouldn't be hanging out with girls. I shouldn't be talking to girls. I shouldn't be enjoying the company of girls. I shouldn't be fancying girls. I shouldn't be hanging out with this other gay bloke. You know, it was all bad. Like, I was so anxious. And then I found myself fancying all these girls as well. Not all of them, but I fancied a lot of the girls who were at uni. Art is a course that many women tend to take, in my experience, and therefore the art department was populated with vast amounts of women, some of them very attractive, in my opinion. Yeah, so I was like, shit, I think I fucked up with this whole gay lark. I don't think I am gay. I think I fucked it. I think I messed it up. Lord. So I got in this gay relationship, and it was totally not me. Yeah, and it's so strange how being in a male on male relationship helped me to realize my straightness. Because when I was in the gay relationship, all I was ever thinking about was women, and I just wanted to be with women, and finding women attractive and wanting to spend time with women. And that was the counter brain fuck to what it was like with Mrs. A. Because when I was with Mrs. A, it was like, what about men? And then I got with Mr. B, and I was like, no, what about women? I really don't like this man thing. I really, really don't like it. And I was trying to find all kinds of different excuses, actually, to not have sex with him. I tried religion. Buddhism. I went looking online for like things about Buddhism that say that homosexuality is wrong. It's got to be in there somewhere. I'm a Buddhist now. Come on, find the homosexuality is wrong bit in Buddhism. It's got to be in there. And I found something. And then I told it to him, and I was like, look, it says here, homosexuality is wrong. Therefore, I should not have sex with you because I'm a Buddhist. So I was basically trying anything because I just didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. Partly I don't know whether it is to do with the fact that I was conditioned to have a homophobic response, or whether it's just an not inbuilt, but just a sort of preference of myself, really, as to not liking having sex with men very much at all, and to prefer having sex with women or a woman. Many of them all at once. 30 women on me at one time, please. Yeah, I was just drifting away into a pornographic fantasy. Now, back in the room. Come on. Yeah, so that was a tricky relationship for many reasons. So not only was this person who I was with possessive and difficult in himself, but I was still unsure of my sexuality being in a gay relationship, and also finding my course hard, and the fact that I'd done like all these other things as well. Oh, and I had the campaigns for him that I became the leader of the Go Green campaign. And I wanted to be very, very active in the other campaigns that were going on as well, the Fair Trade campaign. There were always meetings going on, different events going on, and I tried to get myself to as many of them as I could, because I wanted to be this savior type of person. That was one of my big passions, was to do social justice warrior type stuff. And I subsequently disconnected from that, and I went, whoa, I'm just taking a big moral high ground superiority trip. This is all about ego. This has nothing to do with what actually happens in the world. This is to do with what I get out of it. So I snapped out of that and went, whoa, I've been an asshole. I've been acting like a dick to other people in the name of goodness. So, yeah. Okay. Oh, fuck's sake. Right. So that's uni, and I broke up with Mr. B because I wanted to, basically, and it was the right thing for me to do, for my own sanity and for my own health, and for what I wanted to do with my life. I did not want to be with him anymore. It was a horrible situation to be in. It wasn't getting any better. In fact, it was getting worse, and it was just time up, man. Time up. Game over, man. It's game over. 17 hours. 17 days. We're not gonna last 17 hours, man. It's game over, man. Hudson, shut the fuck up, you asshole. Yeah, that was Aliens reference, if you don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, game over, man. And I told him as much. I said, Mr. B, it's game over, man. You're going to be eaten by an alien instead. Go have sex with an alien, man. It's game over for me. Yeah, and around that same time, I've been reading this book called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, which was a meditative kind of book, which was hitting all the right buttons in me. Bing, 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 bing. And seemed to bring together all the things that I'd been reading about in Buddhism, and also the environmental, ecological type of stuff I was into, the fact of being sensitive to other people and animals. Everything seemed to really go, whoa, yes. And I remember thinking those words, yes, yes, this is what I've been looking for. More like, yes, this makes sense. Yes, this is what I already know to be true anyway. Someone else has just written it perfectly. It was like, yes, this is everything that I already believe in. Like, yes, this is right. Yes, this is what I intuitively know to be correct. Or like, yes, I know this is right. I know this is true. That was like, yes. I kept having that word. Yes, I know it. It makes sense to me. It's like, yes, this is everything I already know. As in, this is everything I am about. This is everything I'm about, people. Yeah. And because it seemed to be really favourable towards my environmentalism, and also favourable towards my Buddhism and spirituality and enlightenment and creating a better world. It seemed to be all around that. And it was like, yes. Reading it back now, I don't read it in the same way that I did to begin with. You know, I read it very differently. I suppose I focus on different aspects of it now, as I did when I was younger. When I initially read the book, what was popping out of me was things that was a sense of bringing things together and working towards making a better world and bringing spirituality into action. Was really what I was about. Now, when I read it, I suppose I read it in a different way. I'd like to say it's deeper, but I'm not sure it is deeper, actually. But I read it in a different way to that. I read it in a more of a feeling feeling type way. I just use it as a way to stimulate different feelings inside me rather than to. The message is the same. Like the whole message throughout the whole book is the same, but sometimes it's stronger and sometimes it's weaker. So I just look for the parts that are stronger and I enjoy those more than the parts where it's weaker and I'm like, whatever. Just talking about the ego, blah, 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 ego. Stepping back from thinking, blah, blah, blah. I've heard this a million times. Okay, I know what it is. And then you hit a sudden passage and you go, whoa, 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 and your body starts going. Okay, so I'm talking like a mad person again. Okay. So I was reading that book, and that was helpful to help me move on from Mr. B. Something about what was being said there. I suppose it was a technique, a specific technique, but I've been looking through the book and I can't find the bloody where the hell it says this particular technique. You know, I think I just read into that, but I felt like at some place it said, sit there and look inside and ask yourself what's the right thing to do. Can I find that in the book now? I've got still about 20 pages or so left, or maybe 30 pages left to read. So it might be in those last 30 pages, but I feel like it was earlier on in the book than that. So maybe I just did that by myself and just made up the fact that it came from the book. I don't know. But I thought there was a technique in there where he says, if you're struggling with a decision, then just sit and look inside and feel into your heart and ask yourself what the next right thing to do is. What's the next step now? I can't find it in the book at all. I think I made it up. I just made it up. Oh, man. I might have got it from another book. Then again, it could have been the Deepak Chopra one. I don't know. Well, whatever the case, I did some kind of meditation type thing, and I decided that's it. I've had enough of you. I actually had it as it was just a voice in my head basically that said, I've got to leave him. Leave Chart. Leave Mr. B. Leave Mr. B. Leave Mr. B. So, boom. I did. Okay. Then let's just briefly cover the next bits in very small detail. So I randomly went back to live in Reading for a while, for a month. Had a weird time there. Did a gig that I didn't want to do. I did a gig and got told that, where are your supporters? And I was like, fuck that guy, man. Decided to go to America based on strange, weird ideas, but they made sense to me at the time. Signs from the universe. Hello, what sign are you? Yeah. And then I went to America. I had planned on being homeless in America. Eventually, I did manage to get to be homeless in America. Hurrah! Lifelong dream accomplished. Homelessness. What a goal. Yeah. And I had loads of different random adventures in America with different people. One of the worst ones was, or the worst one, was being assaulted. Oh, fuck, two. One, being assaulted by a man sexually while I was staying with him because I was homeless, looking for a place to stay for free without being assaulted sexually, and was assaulted. And then the second worst one was, no, I'd put this one as a higher level badness actually, was being slapped in the face and kicked in the balls, kneed in the balls, by a person I called, codename Mrs. D. Yeah. Oh, and previous to that, there was a person I stayed with for 3 weeks before I went to America called Mrs. C. So there is a Mrs. A, Mr. B, Mrs. C, and Mrs. D. Whatever. Who cares? And then what? Came back from America, right? I've skipped out a hell of a lot of stuff, by the way. Yeah. I came back from America and came back to this house. I actually met up with Mr. B randomly while I was here. just to kind of catch up. And I did this weird thing where I felt like I'd changed a lot since he knew me, having been to America and gone through all these experiences. And I felt like I had to change into some clothes that he would recognize before he came, which is a bit strange. And by this point, I think my parents really thought that I was going insane. Um, we have, I have to talk about some stuff. So I was doing the insulation in the loft here, the loft spaces here and up in the higher loft space. I was doing some insulation to um, make it more cost effective to heat the house. And it was taking a long time. And also I was trying to do this thing where every 10 minutes I would stop and have a breather and take 10 conscious breaths or a conscious breath or something. So I put this alarm on my phone to go off every 10 minutes, right? And every 10 minutes it would go off and go beep, 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 beep. And at that point I was supposed to take some conscious breaths or a conscious breath or 10 conscious breaths. I can't remember what it was. So I was trying to do this spiritual practice while I was doing this stressful, difficult, claustrophobic and cramped work in loft spaces. And the alarm thing really wasn't helping to have an alarm going off every 10 minutes and doing this breathing thing. And it was stressing me out even more. And I also noticed that I was having a lot of thinking going on at that time, like to the point where it was uncontrollable. And the breathing thing and the fact that I felt stressed about my family as well. I felt like I needed some help or a break. The words I used was I needed a break. I wanted to be away from my family, basically. And I had this image come to me from the film Patch Adams with Robin Williams. Ties in nicely to the beginning of this episode. Yeah. This film Patch Adams came to me where Robin Williams' character, Patch Adams, Hunter Patch Adams, he checks himself into a psychiatric ward, a mental health hospital establishment, insane asylum thing, right? And he does that because he's, in the film at least, the character is floundering. He doesn't know why he's where he is. He doesn't feel like he fits in life. He doesn't feel like he fits in. He doesn't know what his place is in life. He doesn't know what his role is in life. He's kind of suicidal. He's on a load of pills, like antidepressant type pills, Prozac type stuff, whatever. And he's feeling shit basically about his life. And so he voluntarily checks himself into a mental health psychiatric institution to I don't know, because he feels like that's the place to go. So he did that, and his life from that point onwards in the film has a dramatic change because of the experiences that he has in that mental health institution. He finds connection with other people, and he finds that putting his attention on other people's problems rather than his own really helps him to deal with his own problems, basically, or it helps him to shut off from them. It gives him purpose and it gives his life meaning. If he's helping other people, then it gives his life meaning. And I really used to be inspired by that film a lot. It really inspired me, mainly because of Robin Williams' performance, but also the message of the story seems to be something like helping other people is good. And we can find richness when we help other people. We seek to do good things and be in a sense of community, and to not treat other people inhumanly just because they are supposedly mentally unwell, and that you can achieve healing with people who are mentally unwell by being compassionate and caring and going along with them, as in entering into their reality and empathizing with them stuff like this. So I took some meanings from that film, and that film was coming back to me because I was thinking, maybe I should just check myself into a mental health institution. And I went to A&E, I believe. I went to, well, somewhere. I think I went to A&E or the local hospital psychiatric department. No, I went to the local hospital psychiatric department, which was Wexham Park Hospital in Slough, near me. Was in Wexham technically, which is a part of Slough. Yeah, and I just went there to say I'd like to see a psychologist or see a psychiatrist. Or I need some help, or I want an appointment or something, about my mental health. And what happened then was, they put me onto the system. They generated an appointment, and they sent me a letter which came a week later or something, and the appointment was scheduled for a week after that. But by that point, my mental state had changed, and I no longer felt like I needed it. It was only based upon that feeling of stress that I went and made that appointment. So, because I was stressed out from this fucking insulation work. I felt a real pressure from my dad to be doing it, and to it was a claustrophobic environment. That was part of the stress as well. It was a difficult job. I felt this pressure from my dad to be doing it and to do it well and stuff, and I didn't like doing it, and I felt claustrophobic. And then I had this spiritual task that I was trying to do, which was making things worse. And it was just a not nice experience. It was a horrible experience, and so it was stressing me out, basically. And also, my parents had not really acclimatized to me having come back from America either. They just... I might have got the timeline wrong here, but I'm going to go with it as I remember it. They weren't fitting in with me as I'd come back from America. I don't think they liked the fact that I had an American accent all of a sudden. And I was calling people asshole casually when they were being rude. Yeah. Okay, so I did that stuff. I also randomly met up with a girl who I knew at uni, and we were randomly just started holding hands and talked for hours, and then later on in the story we ended up having sex, which was really bizarre because I wasn't even sure that I fancied her before that. I didn't even really find her attractive. But we just suddenly, when we re-met, it was like, oh, there you are. Oh, and it was like, oh, we've always loved each other, and we suddenly reconnected really strongly. That was bizarre. It's like she just came, we held hands immediately, and went upstairs and talked for ages. And hugged and stuff. And then later on we had sex. Not on that same night, but on a different occasion. That was very strange. Because I didn't even know I liked her that much. I just thought she was just a person who was in part of my campaigns group. Yeah. So that was weird. Okay, video's getting a bit long now. Okay, I like the fact that we've finally broken into this weird territory where I'm back at home, and like mental health stuff is starting to become more of an issue for me personally in the story, and also for my parents. But I don't get a sense of what they're thinking and feeling at this time in the story. I just get a sense of something looming and a feeling of oppression going on. And yeah. Alright, well, I'm going to leave it there, but I think that we did well. We covered most of the story from start to finish up until this point today. Still bogged down in the Mr. B stuff. Almost said his name then as well. Again, nearly. Fully. Ugh. Okay, thanks for watching. Death.